Yeah, there you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to introduce our next speaker. As a matter of fact, he is the president of the Ohio Rights Group. The president. So he must be really important if people like him a whole lot. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. John Pardee.
Just let me clarify, the only reason I'm president because nobody else wanted the job. And I tell you what, after all these months, I'm kind of doubting my decision. This is hard work, let me tell you people. Just so you know, when Cheryl and I are done speaking, we're going to be giving away a vape pen. We're going to be giving away some cannabis medicine. We're going to be giving away a t-shirt. And humble me, I'm going to be giving away a signed copy of my children's book I wrote. And the only way that you can enter to win is you have to be down front. So anybody who wants this product, these things it's a $60 cannabis medicine. It's got to be a $50 vape pen. There's a lot of quality medicine up here. So if you want to enter, your butt needs to be down here, down front, because we have a message we want to preach to Ohio, and you guys need to hear this up close. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Let's get intimate, Ohio. Let's get close. Cheryl and I have been traveling all over the state. We want to see all you people. Everybody way in the back. And you're so hard to talk to. I want to be able to look you in the eye and tell you what's going on. And Howard Rotz, who spoke earlier from LEAP, has also donated a book. So anybody who's down front, when Cheryl's done, is going to qualify. All right. Who's ready for change, Ohio? I tell you what, I'm so ready. I've traveled all over this state. I've met so many people, and everybody has a very similar story. Gut-wrenching stories of people who have been hurt by prohibition, not by cannabis. They've been hurt by prohibition. Not a single soul has ever been hurt by cannabis. No one's ever died from it. No one's ever gotten sick from it. No one's ever died from... Look what's going on with the medicines out there today. The ones that they prescribe that we can have legally. Those are the ones that are killing us. Do you guys realize that opiate deaths are outstripping car accidents now? And that's legal, and cannabis isn't. Does that make any sense to anybody? Of course not. It doesn't make any sense. This is crazy. We need to change these laws. The only reason we can't get this thing changed is because of the intransigence of our government. But the thing about it is, here in Ohio, we the people have the power. We the people have the power. And I'm going around the state of Ohio and telling people, this is the message I've been telling people. Cannabis is our right. We don't need permission. By vote of the people, we're going to end prohibition. But we can't do it alone. This has been hard work. Linda and all of her team down here in Cincinnati are doing an amazing job. They've been working their butts off. We just left the folks in Toledo. They've been working their butts off. We already have 3 counties that have met their state minimum. We need 44 counties total, so if we can get a few more going, we can get that momentum rocking and rolling. We've got sponsors coming on board who are helping us. Our message is getting out. We've had an incredible amount of media exposure on this trip. We were talking to folks in Dayton. They're going to be doing a segment on the Ohio Reds Group during their sweep week. You know what that means? If you're doing it during sweep weeks, they know this is a big story. This is on the lips of every Ohioan. Everyone's talking about this. You got to realize, we are the silent majority. We are the silent majority. More than 60% of Ohioans support therapeutic cannabis. If we have more than 60% of the people supporting this, our job is to get it on the ballot. We get it on the ballot, it's over. It is over. And you guys have to help. You guys got to make this thing a reality. You got to go to our website. A lot of people don't realize our petition is downloadable. You go to our website, OhioRightsGroup.org. You can sign up, download our petition, go around your neighborhood, collect signatures, mail it into the Columbus office, and those are going to start counting. We need to get 385,000 signatures into the State House by July 3rd. So we got a lot of work to do, and we don't have a lot of time to do it. But you guys need to be spreading the word. You guys need to be getting on social media, telling everybody exactly what we're doing. This is a people power movement. This amendment was written of, for, and by the people. It has nothing to do with corporations. This is about rights established for the citizens of Ohio. Our amendment is very different. If you heard what's going on in Michigan and California, what happens when they pass a law? They pass a law to allow therapeutic cannabis. What happens? Parts of it get struck down in court. legislatures try to write trap laws or do defunding. If we establish this as a right in our Constitution, it can never be taken away. It'll be your right. It'll require the state of Ohio to defend you as a citizen of the state of Ohio if anybody tries to infringe upon those rights. It'll never be taken away. Our amendment has been called a model for the nation. Activists all over the nation see this. You know what? This is what we should have done a long time ago. We have the best amendment on the planet. We need you guys to make this thing a reality. And the thing about this thing is it's a beautiful thing because it speaks to everybody. It speaks to patients who need therapeutic cannabis. It speaks to farmers who want to grow a profitable crop without damaging the environment. It's low consumption of water, doesn't need herbicides, pesticides, and a great cash crop. They can get 2 to 3 times what they can get for corn and soybean. This is amazing. We are a big agricultural state. We're a big manufacturing state. You guys can imagine what's going to happen in the state of Ohio when we pass this amendment, how many good paying jobs are going to be out there, how much our industries are going to grow. Think about it. Think about getting a job in the cannabis industry. Who wants to get up, get a good paying job and enjoy your work? I know I do. I'm so ready to bring this reality back to Ohio. My son, like many of people that you probably know, is a refugee. He was almost killed in a car accident 5 years ago, and his doctors told him pain was going to be his constant companion. And we had to make a decision. What are we going to do? Well, they started prescribing him opiates. Well, I looked at that. What's the track record of opiates? You go from prescription opiates to street opiates to heroin to death, just like Howard Ratz said. They know where that leads. Acetaminophen and Tylenol is the leading cause of liver failure in America today. You want to prescribe that to my son? He's 25 years old, have tried to take Tylenol for the rest of his life. He wouldn't make it to 60. His liver would be shot and he'd be dead. There's only one therapeutic compound out there that's a solid analgesic that you can use for a lifetime without ill effects, and that's cannabis. I can look people in the eye and I can tell them, I am not afraid to admit that. I was on stage in Toledo with a doctor, Dr. Carone, Heather Carone. She was amazing. She's an ER doc, and she was telling me 90% of the cases that come into her ER are alcohol related. You know how many are cannabis related? Boom, 0. And think about the other thing too, our veterans. We're losing our veterans at an alarming rate through suicide because of their battle-related injuries. She's had to treat veterans with gunshot wounds to the head, self-inflicted gunshot wounds to the head because they couldn't take the agony anymore. Guess what we know helps our veterans? Cannabis. Our veterans in Ohio are at a disadvantage. The VA has made a directive that any state that has therapeutic cannabis written in their law, the VA will honor that. So if you have a veteran in the state of Ohio, we pass our amendment, we're protecting our veterans because they will have access to a medicine that we know saves their life. I've had many veterans come up to me and tell me, this medicine has saved my life. And we need to get that to them. We need to make it happen. We have to come together, people. I've been telling everybody, united we win. United we win. I tell you what, I'm on this campaign trail. I've met people who are the most strident liberals working with the most staunch conservatives. They're coming together on this thing because they know it's a people's rights issue. This is our right, and we gotta fight for it. We gotta make it happen. No corporation, no major multinational corporations could come in here and bail us out because this is about people. This is about making things happen for us here in Ohio. So all I'm going to say is, after we leave Cincinnati, we are going to be heading to Columbus, is our next stop. I've been picking up petitions all along the way. I got a trunk full of signed petitions. These people all over the state are energized. I will pick your petitions up. I will take them to Columbus. We're going to add more to our counts. We're going to get there. We're going to make this happen. We're going to win in 2014, because you know what's going to happen in 2016? 2016, when we make it legal, the presidential candidates are going to try to come through Ohio, and they're going to try to win the White House. What do they need to win the White House? What state? Ohio. They need Ohio to win that state. What's going to happen when Ohio's a legal state in 2014? They're not going to win the White House without promising and declaring full-throated and without equivocation that they're going to end federal prohibition. We want to help all the citizens from coast to coast. It's time to end the misery, time to end the sadness, time to end the suffering. I want my kids going to college, not to prison. This is ridiculous. All right, I'm going to conclude by saying I have been so blessed and honored on this journey. I saw Cheryl on The View, and she moved me. And I had to reach out to her on Facebook, so I found her on Facebook, and I said, that was amazing. And I told her what we're doing in Ohio. Little did I know she was going to write me back. She said, I want to help. You know, she dropped everything. Hey, man, let's give her a round of applause. So she dropped everything she was doing. And the Ohio Rights Group, I tell you what, these are amazing volunteers all around the state. We worked for 6 weeks to put this thing on. And I tell you what, I had professional promoters, you know, I was trying to talk to help us out and say, hey, can you help us out? And he said, yeah, when do you want to do it? And I told him, he said, he goes, I don't have enough time. But you know what? We did all the lifting. It was the Ohio Rights Group that came together. We worked our butts off the last 6 weeks to make this tour a reality because we knew we had to get our message out there. And what better spokesperson to get our message out there than the Martha Stewart of marijuana, Cheryl Shuman. She has been dynamic, she's been electric. I tell you what, she has been a trooper. This has been a hard, there's been nights we've had 4 hours of sleep. Last night, we're all working on 4 hours of sleep, people. We're on fumes, let me tell you. But this is so important. We want to keep fighting through this. We're fighting through this for our families. We're fighting through it for your families. We've got to come together, like I said. Left, right, old, young, black, white. We got to come together and make this thing happen. This is a people's movement. So I want you guys to give my friend Cheryl Shuman a warm Ohio welcome because she's Ohio native. She's a Buckeye. Let's hear it for Cheryl Shuman!
Thank you guys so much. I'm going to do something a little unorthodox. The very first thing I'd like to do is I would like to bring some of the amazing women up here. Stacy and Lynn Wilson and Mary from North Ohio Normal. I want to bring you up here on stage because, you know, it's not just about me. The secret to legalization is women and moms. I want you guys up here with me. Tanya, can you come up here? Can you come down here? How can we get you up here? It's not just me. And now what I want you to do while the women are coming up here, I want you to do something else really special because this, what we're looking at, is our community. These are our brothers and our sisters, and you know what? We are all in this war together. So I want you to turn around. I want you to say hi to the person next to you. I want you to introduce yourself. I want you to get to know each other, just like in church. Remember when you used to have to go to, come on, now shake some hands. Introduce yourself. All walks of life. I'm expecting a little bit of friendship here. Come on. We're all in this together. Unity in the community. One of the things that I want to talk to you about is, listen, it is not easy being a woman, first of all, and it is certainly not easy being a woman in this drug war, because not only do we have to fight against the prohibitionists, we are fighting amongst each other, and that's why these women standing here with me are all part of the secret. You talk to all the top political strategists, and I've talked to people who advise Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi, and they will tell you, women and moms are the secret to legalization, and it is these women that help put this event together to take care of you and your rights. And we take our hits, we take our shots, so I want to stand here loud and proud and tell you a little bit about my story and how I came here. Has anyone seen any of the media that we've done? Do you know my story? By a show of applause, just so I know that you're here and you're listening. Have you guys seen the media that we've done? Let me start off by saying my name is Cheryl Shuman, and I am a proud and loud cannabis consumer, born and raised on a tobacco farm of all things, just outside of one of the poorest counties in this nation, Scioto County, and I grew up Twin Creek Holler without running water or electricity until I was 14 years old, and I am proud of those humble beginnings. And you know what? I remember working on those tobacco farms, and my stepdad would allow me to keep the scraps so we could go down to Maysville, Kentucky to the tobacco outlets, and I got to keep the revenue from those scraps to put my way through private school. And you know, one of the things that I learned very early when I had my first day at private school was the difference between the haves and the have-nots. And I only had enough money through a year of out there, you know, stripping tobacco, pegging tobacco, planting tobacco, curing tobacco, hanging tobacco, suckering tobacco. And I know how to grow things, which has actually come to help me later in my years. But I do grow some fine cannabis, but that's later in the story. But one of the things I learned on my very first day at school, and I was so proud of myself because, you know what, I was brought up to value human qualities, not money. But things like hard work, integrity, ethics, being good and loving our neighbor. And I remember my first day at school, none of those rich kids wanted to sit with me, and I didn't understand why. And when I actually had the gall to ask them, why don't you guys want to sit with me? And the girl looked over at me, you know, the mean girls. There are the mean girls. And she said, well, because you're poor. And I was dumbfounded because, you know what, it was actually the very first time I had heard the word poor. But I didn't know enough to go and look it up in the dictionary. And I remember that so vividly because I was so scared and lonely and I was the new girl in school. So I went to Sister Detna and I asked her, I said, where's the dictionary? I look it up and it says poor, one who lacks material possessions. That's not so bad, you know? And then I realized, but I started really realizing the differences between the rich and the poor. And even though I only had enough money to afford one uniform, I washed that uniform every day and I got suited up and showed up for school and I got an education and I was able to build a life for myself. So never underestimate that some hard work and determination literally can make the American dream come true, because I'm telling you, the American dream is still possible. And right now, don't underestimate, you are witnessing the birth of a brand new industry. Cannabis will be a $47 billion industry by 2016, whether the prohibitionists like it or not. The genie is out of the bottle. I work in the media. That is what I'm skilled at. I started working in the media when I was 17 years old. Because I was poor, this is back in 1977. I'm 53 years old today. No, not today, but right at this moment, I'm 53. I'll be 54 in March. But I started my career at age 17, and I was known as America's Coupon Queen. I started actually on the Bob Braun show here at WLWT. And what had happened, you know, I had started this couponing and refunding system when I was in high school, and as a cheerleader, because even though those mean girls didn't like me at first, I'm one of those people, it's like, I will make you like me. You may not like me now, but I will make you like me, because I'm going to kill you with kindness and niceness, and then you're going to say, oh my God, you're so nice. I didn't realize you were so nice. And then I always tell people, and John will attest to this, I always tell people, shh, don't tell anyone I'm nice, because I've got that bitchy image to maintain, and people think I'm nice. They won't fear me, right? But I'm very proud to say that Bob Braun, he saw an article in the local newspaper where I'd helped a little old lady with my coupons and refunds to get free groceries for that week because she couldn't afford to pay for them. And I also started teaching people how to get refund offers back. So Bob Braun invited me on the show, and live on the air, I was 17 years old. And we're talking, and it was just so cool, and I was just like, wow, yeah, you know, it's like, wow. And back in those days, we didn't have commercials like they do now. You know, Bob brought me on the show, and he's like, ladies and gentlemen, we have the Coupon Queen here, blah, blah, blah. And I'm on there. I've got the biggest kiss-ass grin. It's like, wow, I'm on TV. This is pretty cool, you know? And I'm watching him, and he's got his Tyson chicken commercial, which he's doing. He's like, okay, we're going to cut to a commercial. And I'm looking at the camera. He's like, hi, we've got Tyson chicken here. And we did our own commercials back then. And so that's when at age 17, I learned about branding. And branding is a really key component to this story. So keep in mind branding and how Johnson & Johnson and Procter & Gamble, they are famous for family brands, right? Let's think about the brand of cannabis consumers. Are you guys happy with what you've seen before we started our media campaign about how the media, the mainstream media, was painting us? Because I know I wasn't. Because you know what they try to do? They try to make us look like the stupid stoners or the stupid this that can't get it together, that are sunk into the couch and like da-da-da, picking our nose or whatever. But you know, listen, there's people out there who are shining examples. You know, these women are great examples, amazing women, hardworking women, good hearts, kind caregivers, and loving, and they work their asses off. And then we have people who are productive members of society like Richard Branson. Look at him, he's a billionaire. You can't get more responsible and successful like that. And let's talk about couch potatoes. A little guy named by the name of Michael Phelps. Anybody know Michael Phelps? To me, one of the greatest athletes of all time. So when I got sick, the very first time that I used cannabis, I was 36 years old. And for me, I was one of those people, I grew up in an alcoholic home. And it wasn't pretty going home. I used to get so involved in extracurricular activities because I was afraid to go home. When I went home, my alcoholic stepfather used to beat the you-know-what out of my mom, and it was hard. And I realized at a very early age that alcohol can make people very violent. And I used to run away, and I'd run away up in the hills where a group of hippies from the Haight-Ashbury district had come out. And I didn't know what cannabis was then, but I'll tell you one thing. I never heard an argument in that home. Everybody was happy all the time, and I thought, I don't know what their secret ingredient is, but it's so much nicer here. And so many times that group saved my life. And I will never forget it, and I will always be grateful for that. But when I tried cannabis for the first time, I was 36 years old. I was one of those Susie Straights. Because of my stepfather, I was afraid of anything that would alter my level of consciousness because I didn't want to be like him. So when I was going through a divorce, a really bad divorce, and I started having post-traumatic stress disorder and daymares and nightmares about things that my stepfather did to our family, and it really messed me up. I started having flashbacks about how my stepfather would use me as target practice with his shotguns. We had a pile of river rocks out on the farm, and to teach me the work ethic, and that's why I'm a workaholic today. My stepfather used to take me and make me take the rocks one by one and throw them over that fence. And when I didn't move fast enough to suit him, he would either shoot at me with a shotgun, or he would use an electric cattle prod to shock me in the back and send me into convulsions. I was 8 years old. So for a long time I was having these nightmares of post-traumatic stress disorder, and anyone who tells you that post-traumatic stress disorder is not real, I'm telling you it's real. I'm 53 years old and those memories are just as vivid today as they were back then. And I didn't know what was going on though. And when I went to my therapist and my doctors at age 36 and I said, hey, I really need some help because these memories are flooding and I can't control it, and all I can think of is I just want this pain to stop. And that's what's happening to a lot of our veterans and a lot of women who are domestic violence victims and living in fear. And we shouldn't have to live in that fear. So my doctors prescribed 80 milligrams of Prozac a day. They prescribed Xanax, they prescribed sleeping pills, and then another pill to wake up. And I literally, I'll tell you something, talk about mood stabilizers, my moods are stabilized all right. It was like, I went from running a multi-million-dollar company to literally suffering the side effects of literally thinking every single day about just wanting to die. So one day I went to my therapist and I said, hey, you gotta help me because I want to be here for my kids, and right now all I can think about is I just want to end this because the pain is so bad. And after having all of those pharmaceuticals in my system, which the side effects are, if you listen to the pharmaceutical commercials on Wellbutrin and Prozac and all these drugs, the side effect that they tell you it could cause suicide. And my doctor looked at me and he said, you know what? It's 1996. Prop 215 had just passed in California, which legalized medical cannabis for the first state in the country. And he looked at me and he said, hey, I could go to prison for even telling you this as a medical professional, but he said, you know what, lady? You need to smoke a joint. And my first thought was, oh my God. I thought at first I was being set up for some kind of a custody dispute. Like, no, that can't be it. That's my doctor. That's my doctor. And he's telling me this. Then he started telling me about mood stabilizers and about the history of cannabis and how it was used for 3,000 years in our pharmacies. And it wasn't until the 1930s that it was taken out of the pharmacies. And you know what? For the first time in my life, Susie Straight here, who swore she would never do anything to alter her level of consciousness or take drugs. To this day, I've never smoked a cigarette. I've never done cocaine or any kind of illegal drugs. But for the very first time in my life, I started feeling healed. And I am convinced that that moment, yeah, I think that deserves a little bit of applause. So I started using cannabis, and one of the things that I learned was there were other people using it too, but they were in the closet. And keep in mind, this is right about the time of AIDS and the LGBT movement. And then I started realizing, when I confided in two of my best friends, I'm like, you aren't going to believe this, but my psychiatrist has his own garden for marijuana in his backyard. And my psychiatrist rolled a joint for me. And they were like, oh my God, we smoke pot too. And you know what? Those two women that I very first told are still my very best friends in the whole world. I mean, and not just best friends, but like if you accidentally run over somebody in the freeway or something, they'll come and help you bury the bodies. That's how good of friends they are. But anyway, so I started using cannabis, and you know what? My children would be the very first person to tell you. My daughters are 32 and 26 now, but they will tell you that when I started using cannabis and got off of the pharmaceuticals and off of the mood stabilizers, they got their mom back. And of course, one of the very first things, and we all know this, one of the very first things that I wanted to do when I was up out of bed, it's like I wanted to bake brownies, of course, with my kids. So anyway, fast forward, everyone was still in the closet then. And again, I equate this movement, it's a civil rights issue. It is our bodies, our choice, and we are all in this together. And now I equate it very similar to the LGBT movement, and this is a lifestyle choose, what we choose to do, whom we choose to love, how we choose to treat our bodies. So, well, I love you too. Thank you. But fast forward 10 years. My parents divorced when I was only 18 months old. I never had the opportunity to see my real parents in the same room. And one day in 2006, I got a call from my mom, whom I had not talked to in decades, because my stepdad wouldn't let me. My poor mom. I know she did the best that she could. Thank God he's dead now. But I got a call from my mom. She says, you're not going to believe what happened. I'm like, what happened? She goes, well, when you put me on classmates.com after your stepdad passed away? And I said, yeah. She goes, your real dad called me. And I'm like, get out of town. My real dad? She goes, yeah, and we're getting married again. After 40-something years, my parents are together again. So I was so excited. I'd been working really hard. I do have a tendency to be a workaholic. My work is everything to me. I've been married twice, divorced twice, swore I'd never get married again. I have 2 daughters that I love very much, and I dedicated my life just to my work. These rings are my commitment rings to myself and my girls. I'm a single parent, and I'm a proud single parent. But I got in my car, I had a Porsche at the time, put on a bikini, put the top down, drove straight through. I get to my mom's house, and she's like, I'm there, of course, I'm all excited. I'm like, hi! I've got a mom and dad now. I was super excited. And granted, I was tired. I drove straight through. And my mom answered the door, and she goes, oh, you don't look so good. I'm like, give me a break. It's been 4 days. She goes, nope. I'm telling you, there's something about your skin that doesn't look right. And she goes, your Uncle Ned just was diagnosed and died of pancreatic cancer in 3 weeks. My favorite uncle. So I went to the doctor at my mom's insistence, and literally the doctor came in, did a pelvic, did an ultrasound. We started with the OBGYN, because when you're a woman, that's what you got to do, get up in the stirrups. It's not pleasant. That's probably why I avoided it for so long. Well, it could be pleasant, but that's another story. So I knew that there was a problem when the doctor took my mom in the other room, and my mom came back crying. So what was supposed to be a happy reunion turned out to the beginning of my diagnosis of having cancer. Ovarian cancer is completely asymptomatic. I just thought I was depressed. I just thought I was stressed because I'm getting to meet my parents for the first time. I was told that I wouldn't live to my next birthday. I gathered my children. I had an emergency surgery. I had a radical hysterectomy. They took everything out, including part of my bladder, part of my colon. I ballooned up to over 210 pounds, and then I dropped down to 102 pounds. And when I went, I got transferred up to Columbus, started treatment. It was a number of surgeries, a number of chemo, a number of radiation. And then I gathered my children together because the end was coming, and they'd done all that they could. And I'd forgotten how lonely I was, because I was alone, and I'd lived in LA for a number of decades, and all my friends were gone. But my daughter came to see me. She brought my laptop. And I'd forgotten that I had signed up for the Match.com 6-month guarantee to find love before I left for Los Angeles. And a gentleman wrote to me that I'd gone to high school with. And he goes, "Oh my God, you look great." And I said, "Well, those pictures are a little old and I don't look like that anymore." And I had to tell him, I'm dying. I'm dying. Hardest thing I ever have to tell somebody. So he started visiting me in the hospital, and the first day he came, true to my coupon queen fashion, I was clipping a coupon for my own cremation. Because I didn't want my kids to be burdened with that. And one of the biggest problems when you're terminally ill or chronically ill is you become very depressed because you feel like you're a burden to your families. And that's what's happening in Ohio and other states all across the country. There are people who are very, very seriously ill. So anyway, Fred started visiting me in the hospital. We agreed that instead of wasting my way in the hospital, he said, "You know what, girl? If you're going to die, you might as well go out with a smile on your face." And that was like music to my ears. His sister was growing CBD. How many people know what CBD is? CBD is an active ingredient in the cannabis plant that has been shown to cure cancer, to help with seizures and all that. And so I went out to the farm, and sure enough, he rolled one up for me. He took care of me. I laughed so hard. I'd never had so much fun in years and years and years, and it brought back that 1996 thing. I'm like, damn, I miss this stuff. You know, and I felt good again. So then, of course, I was all giggly, and I couldn't wait, and I was excited, and I got my laptop, so I'm going on there, doing what my mom says, going on the Google. And so I started looking up everything I could find about cancer and cannabis, and that's when I learned about Rick Simpson. That's when I saw Tanya Davis. That's when I saw a number of these top activists. And when you start reading the testimonials and the real-life stories about how cannabis has changed people's lives, you know, I sat my daughter down and I said, I want to do my own garden. I want to go back to California. I want to do my own garden. And what I have left as far as time, I want to leave a legacy behind. I want to come out of the closet. I want to educate people. I want them to understand that this plant can heal people. And I was one of the biggest skeptics ever. And it was me saying this. So I sat down with my girls, and their first concern was, "Mom, you're in Ohio. You could go to jail for this." And I'm thinking, God, I'm sick. I don't want to go to jail. And said, that jail's not fun. So we decided to go to California, went to California, and then that's when I started telling my story on YouTube. And Normal came to me and asked me to start the Beverly Hills Normal chapter. And I started thinking about this, and I went back to my days at Bob Braun, and I started thinking about the whole coupon queen thing. And that's when I realized, you know what? This was all destiny. This was all meant to be, because all cannabis needed was a rebranding campaign. Right? It needs a professional rebranding campaign. You know, because the media did not portray us the way I felt we, as modern cannabis consumers, specifically women, dynamic, remarkable, hardworking, honest, good women. And I started hearing about Pauline Sabin, and that year, my dear friend Tanya Davis won the Pauline Sabin Award. Who knows, by show of applause, who Pauline Sabin is? Do you really know who Pauline Sabin is? Because I will test you, I swear. Pauline Sabin was a woman of society who, back in the 1930s, got together a group of amazing women, just like these women right here, and she started having dinner parties and these ladies who lunch, and those are the women who led the overturn of alcohol prohibition. And when I met Tanya and I heard about this Pauline Sabin award, I was thinking to myself, well, Tanya's from my home state. This girl gets more done from a wheelchair than hundreds of people I know do in their entire lifetimes. She's a true inspiration. And so I was looking at that and I thought, I'm going to start talking to my friends. So I put the word out to my best friend, Dory, who was a casting director for a show called Wilfred. And I let her know, I'm back in town. I've got my own marijuana garden up north. We're having fun. My daughter and I got 31 different strains. So we're like Baskin-Robbins, 31 different flavors of pot, right? Which I thought was really cool because different strains work for different ailments, right? So we had it all. And then the phone rings, and it's David Zuckerman, who's the executive producer of Wilfred. And he calls me, he's like, oh, hey, this is Dory's brother. I'm like, hey, how you doing? He's like, look, I heard you have cancer. Man, that's really a bummer. That sucks. But you know what? I heard you have a marijuana garden, and that's really cool. He said, I'm doing this pilot. It's a show called Wilfred. It's starring Elijah Wood. I said, okay. And he says, I need those pot plants. He said, we're shooting the pilot. And I said, well, what's it about? What do you need the pot plants for? And at that time, I had them in smart pots. So they were actually portable, right? Smart pots. And he says, look, this is about a pot-smoking dog. And in this particular scene, he goes in and he raids the neighbor's grow. So I put the plants in the pickup. I start driving down to Los Angeles. And I was able to go from being a sick and dying cancer patient to a living, healing marijuana expert for film and television. And not only that, they were paying me $500 an hour to tell them what to do. So I got my life back. And then I started, with our own garden, we had excess medicine. And then I started learning about people, again, who grew up like I did, who were poor. And they needed medicine. So we started donating all of our excess medicine to veterans and to women in need who were single parents, some multiple sclerosis patients, some AIDS patients. And you know what? That karma, that healing, that knowing that you're helping people is healing in and of itself. So then I sat down with my daughter and I'm like, okay, we need to do a media campaign. This is a rebranding campaign. Okay, let's think great brands. Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, And so we had this big press conference and Cheech Marin was there and we launched Beverly Hills Normal and the reporters showed up and I was so excited because in one way it was terrible because there were raids going down in LA. But for me, which was good because we're all about getting the message out. And I was like, God, these raids are exactly what we need to stop. So all these reporters show up. The first reporter to interview me in my new position as spokesperson for this new brand, the guy comes to me and goes, so tell me your name again. What is it you do? And I've got live television. Come on. I said, well, we have a magazine. We have our own line of products that we're developing. I work in media. We have a reality series in development. He goes, oh, that's too much. Okay. You're the Martha Stewart of marijuana. Does that work for you? And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that works. Martha Stewart. Okay, she has her own talk show at the time. She had a deal with Kmart, so she had an endorsement. I was like, yeah, that works for me. So the reporter starts, and he goes, okay, we're live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And ladies and gentlemen, we're here with the Martha Stewart of marijuana, and it's stuck. So that's how people know me now. So I called my friend Al Olson that I used to work with at the Today Show up in Seattle. I said, Al, listen. We need a rebranding campaign. He says, you know what, you've built the first brand in this industry. And I said, but we need to get it on the Today Show. Come on, you got to pitch it for me. He said, you know what, mainstream television will cover this young lady when hell freezes over. Well, you know what? 3 years later, this summer, hell froze over. And what I decided to do, I try to do as much activism work as I can, but I know media. And I have relationships with celebrities and producers, and I realize with a proper media campaign, we can reach millions of people because it's about the message and it's about telling individual stories like these, and it's about moving people and touching their hearts and getting them to listen, because there's that old saying, never judge anyone until you walk a mile in their shoes. And I know for a fact that when you have a loved one who's dying or who's in pain, you will do anything to give them a better quality of life. And that's what it came down to. So you know what? What I started doing is my little video diaries, because we live in the age of YouTube and social media. And